In late January 2026, an 84-year-old woman vanished from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Her name was Nancy Guthrie. She was not just any missing person. She was the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. But before any of that mattered, before the headlines, before the FBI, before the nation held its breath, she was simply a mother, a grandmother, a woman who had lived 8 decades of life, who had raised children, buried hard years, and built the kind of quiet, ordinary existence that most people take for granted until the moment it is gone. She went to dinner with family on January 31st. She sat at a table with people who loved her. She ate. She talked. She was, by all accounts, herself, an elderly woman enjoying an evening with the people closest to her. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, nothing that would cause anyone in that room to think it might be the last normal night. When she was dropped off at her Tucson area home, she left with no signs of distress. Her loved ones believed she was safe. They said goodnight. They drove away. And somewhere in the hours that followed, in the dark and the quiet of a January night in Arizona, something happened that no one in that family could have anticipated. Something that would turn a routine evening into the beginning of a nightmare they are still living. But when the next morning arrived, she did not show up for church, and no one could reach her by phone. That detail matters more than it might first appear. Nancy Guthrie was a woman of routine. Church was not a casual appointment. It was a fixture, a commitment, the kind of thing you do not simply forget or skip without a word. When she didn't appear, the people who knew her didn't shrug it off. They felt it immediately. That specific dread that comes when someone reliable becomes suddenly unreachable. That's when the alarm was raised, authorities were called, and what they discovered would spark one of the most mysterious and widely discussed missing person investigations in the United States in years. Law enforcement treated this disappearance differently from most. Because most missing person cases do not begin with surveillance footage of a masked figure standing at the front door of a home in the early hours of the morning. Most cases do not begin with a disabled camera. Most cases do not begin with bloodstains. Investigators believe, based on evidence at the scene, that Nancy was taken against her will during the night of February 1st. Not wandered away. Not confused. Not a medical episode that led her somewhere she didn't intend to go. Taken. That word carries enormous weight. It means someone planned this. Someone chose her. Someone came to that house in the dark, wearing a mask and gloves, carrying a backpack, and left with an 84-year-old woman. Officials have not publicly confirmed a suspect, but they have released images and video from surveillance at her home, the last known visual clues of what happened to Nancy Guthrie. In the footage, a masked figure appears outside her front door early that morning. This person wore a ski mask, gloves, and carried a black backpack. Take a moment to absorb that image. A residential neighborhood in Tucson, pre-dawn hours. And there, on camera, a figure dressed to avoid identification. Deliberate, prepared, moving with purpose toward the home of an elderly woman who lived alone. The FBI described the individual as a man roughly 5 feet, 9 inches to 5 feet, 10 inches tall, with an ordinary build. Ordinary. That word is chilling in its own way. Not distinctive. Not someone who would stand out in a crowd. Someone who could be anywhere. Someone who could be anyone. The kind of person you pass in a grocery store or a gas station and forget immediately. This eerie image, a lone figure tampering with the camera at her home, became one of the central pieces of evidence released to the public. Police have said that the masked person disabled or removed the doorbell camera, possibly to prevent recording. This was not a crime of opportunity. Someone who disables a camera before acting is someone who understood the technology, someone who had thought ahead, someone who knew that evidence would be gathered afterward, and took steps in advance to limit it. That level of premeditation is deeply unsettling. It suggests this was not random. Despite releasing these visuals and appealing for public help, no arrest has been made. Days after her disappearance, investigators found biological evidence at Nancy's home. Samples collected from the scene were sent for DNA analysis, though authorities have not publicly stated the results. Biological evidence. In a missing person case involving an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker and high blood pressure who needed daily medication to stay healthy, biological evidence at the scene is not a reassuring detail. It raises questions that are hard to ask and harder to sit with. Was there a struggle? Did she try to resist? Did someone hurt her in that house, in the home where she was supposed to be safe, before taking her somewhere no one has been able to find? Detectives also recovered a pair of black gloves several blocks away, a set of gloves that resemble those worn by the masked figure in the surveillance footage. Several blocks away. He walked through the neighborhood afterward. He moved through ordinary streets, past ordinary houses, past people who were sleeping and had no idea what had just happened, and he discarded his gloves as he went, as though this were manageable, as though it were contained, as though he had done what he came to do and was simply leaving. That evidence has been submitted to forensic labs for testing, yet no DNA matches have been announced in national law enforcement databases. Somewhere between that footage and that pair of gloves and those biological samples, there is a trail. Forensic science can see things the naked eye cannot, but as the days stretched into weeks, no announcement came. No match, no arrest, no name. The investigation quickly grew beyond Arizona. The FBI joined the case and has been working alongside the Pima County Sheriff's Department. When the FBI enters a missing person case, it signals something. It signals that the scope has expanded beyond what local law enforcement alone can contain. It signals federal resources, federal reach, federal seriousness. Federal agents described the situation as a potential kidnapping and issued a reward of $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's safe return or the arrest of those responsible. Then the community responded in a way that reflected how deeply this case had penetrated the national consciousness. Local law enforcement and a tip line known as 88 Crime received an anonymous donation of another $100,000, bringing the total reward to over $200,000. Someone, unnamed, unpublicized, gave $100,000 because they could not look away from this story and do nothing. The search has drawn tips from around the country. Thousands of people, many of whom had never been to Tucson and had no personal connection to Nancy Guthrie, picked up their phones and called because something about this story would not leave them alone. But no definitive lead has emerged. Savannah Guthrie and her family released emotional public appeals for her mother's safe return. Imagine what that requires. Savannah Guthrie is a woman accustomed to being on camera. She has delivered breaking news. She has interviewed presidents. She has sat in front of a national audience and remained composed through difficult stories. This was different. This was her mother. She pleaded directly with whoever may have taken Nancy, urging them to provide proof that she was alive. Her voice in those public statements carried something that no professional composure can entirely conceal: the raw, private terror of a child who does not know if their parent is alive. She and her siblings repeatedly asked for information, reassurance, something, anything that would tell them their mother was still in the world. Investigators have not identified motives, suspects, or any credible demands with verified proof of Nancy's safety. And then it got worse in a different way. There were reports of ransom notes circulating. For a family already living inside a nightmare, a ransom note, even a potentially real one, is a brutal thing. It means someone has your person. It means someone is trying to convert your grief into a transaction. But authorities treated some of these messages with caution. At least one was believed to be a hoax. A hoax. Someone looked at this family's public anguish, at Savannah Guthrie's televised pleas, at an 84-year-old woman missing in the night, and decided to exploit it. Decided to send false messages to people who were desperate for any sign that their mother was alive. A man arrested in connection with sending fake ransom texts was later released under conditions including no contact with any involved parties. He was released. The family received no answers. And the real question, where is Nancy, remained unanswered. In the weeks after her disappearance, detectives looked at every possible angle. Authorities requested surveillance footage from neighbors' cameras for the weeks leading up to Nancy's disappearance, hoping to uncover more information about unusual activity in the days before February 1st. Was someone watching her before that night? Did someone study her routine? Did someone know when she came and went, when she would be alone, when the house would be dark and quiet and unguarded? The possibility that Nancy Guthrie was surveilled before she was taken, that someone tracked the movements of an 84-year-old woman in order to plan the right moment, is one of the most disturbing threads in this entire case. The FBI shared that they had received over 13,000 tips from the public, a reflection of how widely this case has captured attention across the United States. 13,000 tips. People from every corner of the country calling in because they thought they saw something, heard something, knew something. The collective effort of thousands of strangers trying to help a family find a woman they had never met. And still, nothing confirmed, nothing actionable, nothing that led to a door, a room, a face, a name. Investigators have indicated that they are not ruling out the possibility that more than one person was involved and that the masked suspect may have had a specific target. That last phrase is critical. A specific target. Nancy Guthrie was not chosen at random. She was not a victim of opportunistic crime, someone stumbled upon by chance in the wrong place at the wrong time. According to investigators, someone chose her. Someone identified her. Someone decided that this woman in this house was who they wanted. Why? That question has no public answer. Was it connected to her daughter's fame? Was it personal? Was it financial? Was someone trying to send a message? Was someone trying to extract money from a family with resources and public visibility? None of those questions have been answered. At the time of her disappearance, Nancy Guthrie was known to have health conditions, including high blood pressure and the need for daily medication, a factor that has added urgency and dread to every passing day. Every hour without her medication was a clock ticking. Every day that passed without answers was a day her body may have been without the treatment it needed to function. For investigators, for her family, for anyone who understood what that meant, the medical reality transformed urgency into something more desperate, into something that felt, with each passing day, more like a countdown. Her pacemaker also provided clues to the timeline. Her device stopped communicating around the early hours of the morning when she is believed to have been abducted. A pacemaker that goes silent. That detail is one of the most haunting in this entire case. The device designed to keep her heart beating, the one constant monitor of her body's most essential rhythm, went quiet at the exact window of time when investigators believe she was taken from her home. What does it mean when a pacemaker stops transmitting? It could mean distance from the device's network. It could mean interference. It could mean other things that are much harder to consider. Inside her home, there were signs of concern, including blood stains, but no clear sign of forced entry. No forced entry. That detail has sat uncomfortably in the public consciousness since it was first reported. If there was no forced entry, either Nancy opened the door herself, possibly lured, possibly deceived, possibly threatened into compliance, or someone had access, a key, a code. knowledge of how to get inside. Either possibility leads to troubling conclusions. Either she was manipulated into opening the door to whoever was waiting on the other side, or someone already knew how to get in. Family members, including Savannah Guthrie, have been publicly supporting efforts to find Nancy. The Today Show displayed yellow ribbons and flowers in their studio, a quiet, visible declaration of hope in the middle of a nationally broadcast program watched by millions of people every morning. Yellow ribbons, the universal symbol of waiting, of someone you love who has not yet come home. Every morning that Savannah Guthrie sat behind that anchor desk, she sat in front of those ribbons, in front of an audience that knew what they meant, in a studio that had transformed, in a small but meaningful way, into a public vigil, the professionalism it must take to continue, to show up, to do the job, while somewhere out there her mother is missing and the people responsible have not been found. Despite the massive public interest, despite the $200,000 reward, despite 13,000 tips and FBI involvement and forensic evidence and surveillance footage and national media coverage, the case remains unsolved. That fact is staggering when you hold it fully. Everything that modern law enforcement, federal resources, forensic science, and public awareness can bring to bear. And still, no arrest. Still, no answers. Still, an 84-year-old woman whose location is unknown. Investigators continue to pursue all available leads. They are reviewing new evidence and hoping DNA analysis will yield matches. They are combing through videos from before and after the night of her disappearance, frame by frame, looking for something that was missed, looking for a car that appeared too often, a face that shouldn't have been there, a moment that, in retrospect, was the beginning of what came next. And they continue to urge anyone with information, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it might seem, to come forward. Because in cases like this, it is often the smallest detail that breaks everything open. A neighbor who noticed a car parked in an unusual spot. A delivery driver who saw someone walking at the wrong hour. A single frame of footage from a camera no one thought to check. Somewhere there is a thread. Somewhere someone knows something. Somewhere in a tip line or a memory or a conversation that hasn't happened yet is the detail that changes everything. As of this moment, no arrests have been made. Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts remain unknown. And the mystery, a masked figure in the pre-dawn darkness, a disabled camera, a pair of discarded gloves, bloodstains in a quiet home, a pacemaker gone silent, continues to grip a nation that is watching, waiting, and hoping. Hoping that somewhere, somehow, an 84-year-old woman is still alive, that she is frightened but breathing, that the yellow ribbons on a television studio wall still mean something, that the story does not end the way the evidence sometimes seems to suggest it might, that before this is over, before the cameras and the tip lines and the DNA labs reach their conclusions, Nancy Guthrie comes home. She deserves to come home. Her family deserves to have her back. And the person who walked up to her front door in the dark, wearing a mask, carrying a backpack, reaching for that camera, they deserve to be found.